Welcome to the Supreme Grammar Podcast, where you can learn to write like a Supreme Court justice, with me, Jill Barton. On this episode, I've asked our AI hosts to describe everything legal writers need to know about using apostrophes, and specifically, how to make possessives and when, or even if, to use contractions. Let's listen in.
Today, we're tackling something that even the most seasoned legal minds can trip over: the apostrophe.
Oh, absolutely.
You might think they're simple, but there's more to those little punctuation marks than meets the eye. And for law students, lawyers, or really anyone who wants to write clearly and persuasively, mastering apostrophes is a game changer.
It really is.
We're going to be diving deep into Chapter 1 of Jill Barton's The Supreme Guide to Writing, which, as you might guess, looks at how Supreme Court justices handle their apostrophe. And in this deep dive, we'll be exploring both contractions and possessives, uncovering the secrets to using them effectively in your own writing.
It's going to be a fun one.
Okay, let's unpack this. One thing that really struck me was how Barton highlights the history of apostrophe struggles. Apparently, these little guys have been confounding writers for centuries.
You're kidding.
She even mentions how Jane Austen practically massacred the English language with her use of apostrophes. If Jane Austen struggled, I think it's safe to say we're all in good company.
I mean, that's a relief.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's a reminder that language is constantly evolving, and these punctuation rules aren't set in stone.
Exactly.
But for legal writing, where clarity is paramount, understanding those nuances is crucial.
Oh, absolutely. Precision is key.
Absolutely. And it's not just historical figures who've had their apostrophe battles. Barton mentions the Apostrophe Protection Society.
The what?
Yeah, founded in 2001.
Wow.
I mean, an entire society dedicated to protecting apostrophes. It's both hilarious and a bit alarming.
I've never heard of that.
Right. I hadn't either.
That's interesting.
What's interesting here is that the society's existence speaks to a larger anxiety surrounding apostrophe usage. It's almost as if people fear these little marks are disappearing altogether.
Well, in a world of texting and social media, correct grammar and punctuation sometimes get left behind.
Right.
But for legal professionals, clear and concise writing is non-negotiable.
Absolutely. Barton even makes the case that mastering apostrophes can make you a more modern writer, which I find really interesting.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
When you think about it, a writer who understands the nuances of language, even something as small as an apostrophe, demonstrates a level of precision and attention to detail that commands respect.
Okay. So let's jump into the specifics. Let's start with contractions. Now, I was surprised to learn that while Justice Scalia famously disliked contractions, most of the current justices actually use them in their opinions. What do you think about that?
That's really interesting. It suggests that even in formal legal writing, there's room for contractions, especially when used strategically.
Right. Barton gives some great examples. She notes that justices tend to stick with common modern contractions like can't or wouldn't, but avoid archaic ones like shan't, or super informal ones like ain't.
Right, finding that right balance between formality and readability.
Yeah.
The goal is to write clearly and persuasively. And sometimes a well-placed contraction can help achieve that.
She even mentions a funny anecdote about Chief Justice Roberts changing ain't to got nothing in a Bob Dylan quote.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It really highlights how context and audience matter when deciding whether to use a contraction.
For sure.
What are your thoughts on that? I mean, is there ever a place for ain't in legal writing?
That's a great question. Honestly, I think we can all agree that ain't is probably best left out of formal legal documents. But even beyond ain't, it's worth considering which contractions you use in your own writing and whether they add to or detract from your message.
I like that. It's about being intentional with our language choices, even down to the smallest punctuation mark.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is where Barton's advice about becoming a more modern writer really comes into play. It's about understanding the subtleties of language and using them to your advantage.
All right. Ready to tackle the possessive side of things?
Let's do it.
This is where things can get especially tricky, even for experienced legal minds.
Oh, for sure. Possessives. They can definitely be a minefield, particularly when you're dealing with singular nouns ending in S. Barton points out this ongoing debate among the justices about writing congresses with an apostrophe S at the end, or congresses with just the apostrophe to show the possessive. And it seems like even they haven't reached consensus.
I found that surprising.
Yeah.
If the Supreme Court can't agree, What hope is there for the rest of us?
Well, I think the key takeaway here is consistency. Whichever style you choose, whether you add the extra S or not, stick with it throughout your writing.
Right.
In legal writing, clarity and consistency are paramount, even when it comes to something as small as an apostrophe.
Yeah, and to really drive that point home, Barton shares that cautionary tale about the realtor who was sued for defamation, all because of a missing apostrophe. He wrote employees, the plural version of the word, instead of a singular employee with an apostrophe S to show the possessive. So with that mistake, in his Facebook post where he was complaining that his boss wasn't paying his retirement fund, he effectively accused his boss of bilking all the employees, plural, and not just him, a singular employee. And it completely changed the meaning of his statement.
Wow. That's a stark reminder of how these seemingly insignificant punctuation marks can have real-world consequences, especially in the legal field where precision is everything.
It definitely makes you think twice about proofreading.
Mm-hmm.
Has anything like that ever happened to you?
Oh, absolutely. I think we've all been there at some point.
Right.
It's a humbling experience, but it reinforces the importance of paying attention to these details.
Okay. Well, just to make sure we're all on the same page, can we go over the general rules for forming possessives? Sometimes a refresher is helpful.
Of course. For singular nouns, we add an apostrophe plus S. For plural nouns that already end in S, we simply add an apostrophe after that existing S. And for plural nouns that don't end in S, like children or women, we add an apostrophe plus S.
Got it.
Yeah.
That makes sense. What about possessive pronouns, words like hers or its? Those always trip me up.
Possessive pronouns are actually the easy ones. They never need an apostrophe.
Okay.
They already show possession, so there's no need to add an extra mark.
It's almost like they're rebelling against the system.
Oh.
Barton also spends some time unpacking the complexities of compound possessives, which, as you can imagine, takes things to a whole new level.
Compound possessives can definitely be tricky.
She uses the example of a condo owned by two people, Sam and Alex.
Okay.
If it's a jointly owned condo, it's Sam and Alex's condo,
Yeah.
with just one apostrophe. But if they each own their own condo in the same building, it becomes Sam's and Alex's condos with two apostrophes.
Exactly. It's a subtle difference, but it has a big impact on the meaning. Sometimes to avoid awkward constructions, like that second example, it's best to just rephrase the sentence altogether.
Yeah, sometimes simplicity is the best approach.
Yeah.
And finally, for the real grammar sticklers out there, Barton throws in a little bonus tip.
Oh.
She talks about the rule of italicizing case names, but not italicizing the possessive S attached to them.
Oh.
This is a very specific style point, but it's good to be aware of, especially in legal writing.
Right.
So, for instance, if you're referencing Roe v. Wade and want to talk about Roe's argument, you would italicize Roe, but not the possessive S.
Yeah.
It's all about those nuanced details, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, and it makes you realize how much thought and precision goes into legal writing.
Absolutely. It's about communicating your ideas clearly and effectively. And that attention to detail, even at the level of an apostrophe, can make a significant difference.
So what does all of this mean for aspiring lawyers, law students, or anyone who wants to write more effectively? What's the big takeaway here?
Well, I think the main takeaway is that apostrophes matter.
They do.
They might seem like tiny, insignificant punctuation marks, but they can have a huge impact on the clarity and effectiveness of your writing. And mastering their use is an essential step towards becoming a stronger, more confident writer, especially in the legal field.
Oh, absolutely. And we've seen how a single missing apostrophe can have serious consequences, like in the case of the realtor who faced a lawsuit. It really highlights how vital precision is in legal writing.
It's all about finding that sweet spot between formality and readability.
Yeah.
That balance can be tricky, but it's a skill worth honing.
What's the one piece of advice you'd give to our listeners, especially those who are just starting out in the legal profession?
I would say embrace the nuances.
Okay.
Don't shy away from the complexities of language, even something as seemingly small as an apostrophe. The more you understand these subtleties, the more powerful and effective your writing will become.
I want to thank you for joining us on this apostrophe adventure. I hope you learned some new things. I hope it's given you a little bit more confidence. Until next time, happy writing.
So with a little practice, you'll gain confidence with apostrophes and other punctuation marks in legal writing. Tune into our next Supreme Grammar episode covering how to combine sentences with colons and semicolons. And remember, you can be a great legal writer.